everybody. Welcome out to another Remix Morning Show right here on Black Power Media. I go by the name of the Ear Doctor, and your host for today is Jackie Lukman, Kamal K. Franklin, and Dr. Jared Ware, y'all.
What's up, good people?
What up?
What's up?
Right.
Good to see everybody. Ear Doctor bright and shiny in the winter wonderland.
You already know.
It's not that cold though. It's not that cold in Atlanta.
No,
it isn't. I'm liking that. I'm liking that a lot. We'll get the weather report.
Kamal ignoring the production notes.
Yeah.
It's a good day. We started off right here in the Remix Morning Show, Black Power Media. It's good to see you. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
acting just like black radicals do.
You know what I'm saying? So
rules.
listen, speaking of which, you know what? Let me jump in here real quick and ask you all something that I got in a text from a colleague and a comrade that I have not responded to yet. I want to ask you all. I'm struggling with this. I have to admit that. He said, the text says, but this is perfect for who we got here. It says, I know you are all of these, and I don't even know if I agree with that, but it says, but would you prefer to be known as a revolutionary scholar, an intellectual, or as an activist? And I'm assuming I can't pick a combination or change up the combination or get into definitions, but I was stuck on that. And looking at our array of hosts this morning, I was just thinking, I might throw that out to all of you to something to ponder this morning.
I'm going to go.
So revolutionary scholar, intellectual, or activist.
It has to, of those three, it would have to be activist. I'm not a scholar. I haven't written enough. Most of the things I've written, in fact, my best piece might have been what I did for the book you edited on Malcolm. Other than that, most of my writings are rantings. I think this, and this is what I think. So I'm not going to say that's scholarship. I think a lot intellectually, but I'm not sure if I've come up with any sort of brilliant theories or anything. I rely on what others have put before me. And so of those three, I'm probably far more in the activist category. I create organizations, create programs, I do organizing, work in the community, that kind of thing. I would say activist.
What was that? Intellectual?
Intellectual, revolutionary scholar, or activist. And that's why I'm saying, even in Kamal's answer, there's a lot of nuance in terms of how these are defined. And so I've been stuck on it since I've read it last night. I haven't even responded to the text. I've just been stuck in a thought puzzle.
I'll go with intellectual, Jackie, revolutionary scholar for 200.
See, you picked two, but you picked two. That's what I'm saying. You can't. That's what I'm saying. You can't.
Intellectual.
I know you want to. Intellectual or revolutionary scholar or activist, and the question is, to be put specific to the way it was worded, is what would you prefer to be known as, not what you think you are. Per se, what would you? So that's another reason why I'm stuck on it, because there's what I might think I am, and then there's what I might prefer I would be thought of, and then there's how are these defined, and why can't I combine them? So I'm really stuck.
Oh, see, I would have to combine. I think I would want people to
rule
think
breakers
of me. I know I'm very naughty and just not. No, I'm a nonconformist. That's how I want people to think of me. There you go. A nonconformist. I'm not picking any of your choices. How about
that? See what I'm saying? Just rewrote the whole joint.
And I'll take uncommon in thought. How about that?
See?
And I'll be out on that one.
So much for getting help this morning.
What's the closest that you come to, Jared, for yourself?
I really honestly don't know, because again, I keep getting stuck in the definitions. I might I don't know. I don't think I don't satisfy what I think is an activist defines as an activist anymore. So I think I would prefer that I would be thought of as that. But I don't think I qualify for that. And then I'm not sure that I qualify. Intellectual might be the easiest one that I think I qualify for, because I don't think you have to produce theory. It's just people who are interested and consciously, as I define it, consciously attempting to engage in ideas, to study, to look for other levels of consciousness on a conscious level. That's how I think of an intellectual. I don't really think you have to, I don't know.
I'm not at this
In Revolutionary Scholar.
Listen. You know what I mean? That's why I don't know. I don't want to hear your ideas anymore. I just want you to shut up and listen and do. That's why I'm downgrading myself from. I think at one point I was very interested in what the world thought, what people thought. Meetings,
and now you don't care. Yeah, I hear
now,
you.
Yeah, you reach an age and you're like, yeah, I've done that all before. Just go work that out.
It depends though. So what I've been doing a lot lately, particularly on YouTube, is finding other areas where I am much more humble in what I think I know or don't know. So if I move out of my expertise, then I think I can get into the intellectualism and just enjoy the discussion and the debate, not knowing. But it is true, when I think I know what I'm talking about, I'm less likely. I'm like, I don't want to hear all that.
Or if I'm convinced you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like,
fair enough. Right.
I'm not, it sounds like a word salad right now. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not listening to it.
Yeah.
But similar to your point about scholar. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Jackie. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'm weird about titles. I don't think I like being like defined by, I just, that's, and which is strange, because people are always asking me, well, how do you, when people do invite me to speak and stuff, they're like, well, how do you want us to introduce you? And I was like, I don't know. This is what I do. I can tell you what I do, but I can't, I just feel like people have to kind of decide for themselves what they think Jackie is and does.
Yeah.
That can be kind of dangerous, because it
could be dangerous.
It could be people have described me in some weird ways, and it's like, yeah, that's not, I don't know. But
you gotta be careful going into those comments.
I like titles. I like putting people in boxes. I like to I don't mind if people break out of them. I don't mind if you break out of the box every now and then. But I like a well-defined, okay, I know what this person, and it's really, around ideology. So it's like, I know what this person, their general ideological box is. And again, you can escape it every now and then. But I like that. I don't like when they're like, I'm going to dabble here. I'm going to take a little bit there. That's why that whole spirituality thing, I was like, I'm an atheist. But so I'm like, I'd rather you just be a Christian than do that whole spirituality thing. Because then, I got you in your box. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Very authoritarian.
Hey, but it also fits well with what I think I've learned in media studies, for instance, that we do define ourselves as much by who we are not as by who we say we are. So we need to put people in categories because it helps place ourselves. And when people start acting differently than what we want to define them as, then it starts shaking up our own self-concept. And I tend to think that it does work. I think we all kind of want to be able to say, no, you're in that box, because then I know I'm in this box. And when you start bleeding over into my box, now I get confused about what my box is supposed to be. So, But speaking of all this, I do think in many ways this is a good segue to bring up, I know at some point we're going to talk this morning about the passing of Bell Hooks, who has in many ways struggled for placement and definition and how she is encountered. Right on. Yeah. And I want to share a clip later that from something she participated in years ago that sort of had a major impact on my own work. So right on. So, but she was also somebody that challenged categories and challenged other people's, but when you go on public record and you say that Oprah Winfrey wants to suck the dick of white culture,
that's what I was
you had me at
I was like, oh, that's it.
I was like, Now you talk about trying to find a category. I remember and Dr. Todd Stephen Burrows reminded me of her comment. But when I remember when that, I was like, if that's what a scholar can do, sign me up. You know what I'm saying? Like if I could get to that level, so I never got to that level, but at least not, but I still, like I'm like, that is a standard I can appreciate.
Yeah.
I remember we almost had a car accident because arguing around bell hooks and some form of feminist theory, because she did an interview with, I think it was Lil Kim or something like that. Like she did some magazine interview, and this was later on in her career, so there was definitely some shifting. People thought that she was getting a little flowery, but she was definitely kind of trying to connect with a little bit with like mainstream hip hop culture, let's say, and have those conversations. And so, the whole, then it goes down the rabbit hole of what is feminism, what is sexism, and whatever. And this one sister who was a new driver was getting so upset. And so, we're trying to have the conversation, but everybody still, when you start that kind of like you're reaching out and holding hands with people, you're like, can she slow the fuck down a little bit? So it was like that. Yeah, that was just one of those things. It was like, I remember because I was centered around what bell hooks was thinking or doing at that time. And again, she was never large in revolutionary nationalist communities. In fact, a lot of people, had
issues with her.
Issues with her. But her ideas, and like you said, we should get into it more later, but her ideas and theories were things you had to contemplate, things you have to think about. You could not just disregard her. She wrote a lot. She definitely qualified at the very least as an intellectual and probably a revolutionary scholar, I think. So, yeah. And at times an activist.
No doubt. You go at Oprah and you go at Henry Louis Gates. I mean,
respect.
I'll work with you after that. Like wherever we might disagree, I'm like,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's like that. She got respect from me, and like I said before on the show, and then took a little bit of heat for. I've never like identified myself as a quote unquote feminist in the traditional sense of feminism as we understand it in the U.S. and in the West in particular. But I've always believed in the power of Black women to just be who we are and really change things. And we are marginalized in ways that are different from the ways Black men are, but we are also marginalized equally. So, I was encouraged as I read bell hooks to find my very, scientific, non-intellectual thoughts about what came to be known as womanism, which didn't come from her, but still, the African kind of expression of the validity and the power of woman to be kind of expressed in some of the things that she said. And yeah, there were some things I disagreed with, but I mean, it reading bell hooks made me feel better because you say that you're not a feminist, and people lose their minds. Especially women are just like, oh, how could you say you're not a feminist? You're a woman. Because I mean, Gloria Steinem was an agent, because that's what y'all base your idea of feminism on, and that's not feminism to me. So reading bell hooks was like a refreshing, like, validation for me that, okay, there's not something wrong with me because I don't agree with American Western feminism. And there is something other than that is, specifically an expression for Black women. And she wasn't the only person, but, she definitely got my respect with the Oprah thing. Because, man, I was like, what happened to Oprah? Her show ain't Black no more. What happened?
Speaking of challenging definitions, and we will come back to this. Some might call him an audiologist, but around these parts, we just call him the ear doctor.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? What's up, sir?
I like that.
Hey,
everything.
He should get an award for best segue of the year. That was excellent.
That was
Ooh.
Hey,
well, that was
It's the end of the year. Time to rack them up.
We got to keep
Mood like
Jared around.
Cook,
We got to
man.
keep him around. Word. Since y'all talking about sisters and movements, I want to go to a flashback and talk about a sister that was in a movement. So let's get to it right here on the Remix
All right.
Morning Show.
Let's go. Remix.
Yeah. What's good, everybody? Welcome out to the Remix Morning Show. I am the Ear Doctor, and you are tuned in the right place and the right time. Let me tell you. Make sure y'all go to that like and subscribe button and hit it. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that button, and go to patreon.com and drop some change in the bucket to Black Power Media, and let's keep this thing going. With that said, I want to take y'all to a Black Power Media flashback. That's right. We're going to go back as we talk about another sister that was part of the movement, and we will go to the Black Miss podcast and talk about no other than the sister Angela Davis and what she meant with the Black Panthers movement. So let's get to it and see what they're talking about.
I mean, I had a question about the Captain Maternal, but this kind of speaks to it in a way, because you always talk about that, the stabilizing effect of it, and then you're trying to get free at the same time, and how that's kind of a dialectical process. Do you think that that her image offers more of the stabilizing effect too? And I know there's different phases of it, but I'm just kind of trying to think of a way to dress those together a little bit.
Yeah, I would say, Davis, Black Lives Matter, they're stabilizers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I'm for chaos. I mean, I'm not stupid, right?
Right.
But if I know political prisoners, or I read them, or I teach them, I know they're not crazy.
Gotcha.
Nobody takes those kind of risks unless they've thought it through, and they also agree to the consequences. Right? But for stabilizers, I think they have to mystify or forget some of the violence. Because if you paid attention to it, it'd be like, there's nothing stable here. It's a projection of stability, especially for people who have money and have influential and affluent networks. If you know rich white people who like you, I mean, it's like Derek Bell when he was writing, right? It's brilliant. But he talked about, like, he's caught in the South, they stop his car, and he just says the name of a white judge, and the white cop lets him go without beating him down or taking him to cell. Why? Because it's like having a pass in the antebellum years. You say you belong to a white person.
Yeah.
A powerful white person. And then it's like, oh, you so-and-so's, thing, right? And then it's like, okay, but next time don't drive on this road, or don't speed, or you weren't even speeding, whatever you were doing, right? It's like, okay, if you're a Black person who belongs to structure, you're protected by structure.
Right.
All right. As you see on that Black Miss podcast throwback, talking about stabilizing. Let's talk about that. Let's see what the hosts on the Remix Morning Show have to say about that clip. Let's go, y'all. There we go.
The great Dr. Joy James. You talk about in terms of political positioning and where Bell Hooks is, or it was or was not. Dr. Joy James, and that was a discussion that she has had on a number of times about a piece she's written some years ago, and a number of things she's written in regards to this issue. But as that was saying, checking the myth that Angela Davis was a member of the Black Panther Party, and then checking where people position themselves vis-a-vis the righteous engagement with violence that those in the Panthers, the BLA, and others and political prisoners to this day are suffering for having engaged in. So anyway, so that's a very important discussion, and Dr. James is in her work is more important today, maybe increasingly important today. So anyway, but great discussion.
Definitely agree. Yeah.
Rock out. I'll catch y'all next break.
Yeah. All right, thanks here, Doctor. All right, well, let's keep it moving. It's time, as Kalonji would say, to slap that map.
Slap the map. I still like to say spin the floor.
Right.
right, what's up, world? Welcome back again to the Remix Morning Show, Black Power Media, getting into some news. Jackie, before we move into anything maybe a little bit more serious, although there is substance to some of this at least. I know you didn't get a chance to talk with us about our dear brother Roland Martin, and I saw that you jumped in yesterday and had a few exchanges. And I admit some fascination with the fact that he seems to want to respond to literally every single tweet and comment.
Rolling.
Why? Why did you do
So, well, we decided we were going to change he took over for the Van Jones crying meme. And of course it's perfect. And I think this relates to our collective exchange with him, that picture is taken from his own tears shed over the long lines waiting to vote for Biden. So it's like that was what drew that level of emotion from him. Mm-hmm.
That type of emotion.
Because it was about the suppression of the black vote.
Oh my Lord, he is such a clown. I mean, I knew he was a clown, but I didn't know he was that much of a clown, like professional level Cirque du Soleil clown. Good Lord. I mean, it was wild to me because first of all, he the thing that drew my attention to it was the fact that, here Roland Martin is threatening to slap Kalonji. And I'm like, look, I don't know if people realize how I am, but I'm very protective of my comrades and my people. You can't come after my people. I don't care. We can disagree. We don't have to agree on everything, but you can't come after my people. That's not, I'm just really weird like that. I just see people. I don't let people get away with saying wild shit to my folks on social media, but especially somebody like Roland Martin. It's like, dude, why are you picking a fight with us? First of all, he's trolling on Twitter to find content about himself, and who does that other than an egomaniac? But then he gets mad because he sees a clip from our show about how he is a member of the Black Miss Leadership class. And the clip wasn't as excoriating as, the conversations we're having now about him. The clip was really mild and tame, but he got all in his feelings about it and decided to tweet what he tweeted, and he got what he got. And I took it. It made me angry because here Roland Martin is a man who has considerable influence in the world of political punditry among, bourgeois Black folks, at least. I'll say bourgeois Black folks, because I'm kind of convinced that there are not a lot of working class and poor Black folks paying any attention to what that dude says. But he's got all of this influence and sway and insight or whatever input into the political thought of bourgeois Black folks, and he presents democratic liberal policies as if they are carte blanche, really good for Black people. And he brings up these, what I'm calling them tropes at this point. The fact that, HBCUs are funded and healthcare was expanded. First of all, most of our kids don't go to HBCUs. Most of our kids don't go to college. So it's wonderful that HBCUs were given funding, but what does that do for the rest of our kids who don't go to HBCUs or college? And I'm talking about a very small percentage of Black people. So this idea that we all have this emotional investment into HBCUs that is supposed to translate into this, material success for the rest of us. But
it does at times provide large honoraria for convocations for people like Roland Martin to come speak to. So we can't
exactly
diminish that But there is something that and Jackie, I think I'm getting an echo. Let me just mute you for a quick second, if you don't mind, because I just want to. But you raised something that I thought I actually didn't think to bring up until just now. But in doing research on buying power, I came across an article a couple of years ago about the Tom Joyner morning show that I would at least want to raise up briefly, because in our exchange on Twitter, Roland Martin was quick to remind us that he had worked with the Tom Joyner morning show when he thought that I was criticizing him for working in white media. And I didn't say that. I said commercial mainstream media, which is Tom Joyner morning show. But in this article, to the point you made about the class of the folks listening, this article, and I didn't research it beyond this one piece, but it was a very well-written article by an M. Leonardo in 2008 called Neoliberalism, Nostalgia, Race Politics, and the American Public Sphere, the Case of the Tom Joyner Morning Show in Cultural Studies Journal. Yes, as I said, 2008. In this article, long story short, and I actually tried to reach this person to interview them and wasn't successful. Maybe I'll try again, because the article is a very well-written one that talks about the fact that the Tom Joyner Morning Show does reach, or did at the time reach, the working class segment of the Black community that most scholars who assess the media and public sphere ignore. And for me, it was important because this is sort of the point I'm making, that the target audience of shows like that, who are fed these constant lies and misinformation and propaganda around economics and buying power, et cetera, are the working class, are the majority of our community and a society that many scholars and activists do not engage with in a meaningful way. So we'll be quick to be critical of CNN or MSNBC in talking about what they do or don't do in terms of Black news or talking about race, but we ignore the media that does actually target those communities. And our communities are, or were, particularly at that time, highly tuned in to Tom Joyner. Much more in terms of the Black working class, and they were watching CNN or MSNBC or whatever else. And this article made a really good point about that. And I, anyway, so that's why I think what we're doing and the distinction we're trying to make is important, because we do want to reach and organize, build with, et cetera, and so forth, the majority of the folks in our community who are not paying attention to some of the things that we might find as interest in our activist or scholarly or relative class position, et cetera. So anyway, that's why I do think, and that's why also I thought it was really perfect to see that when it came down to it, even at the most grassroots level, just to point it out again, Data and Wakuri is challenging Roland Martin and looking to build with us. So that's why. Anyway, so let me just stop there, because Kamal, did you want to jump in? Or
yeah, I mean, I was going to say quickly, I thought that, there's one, bringing up the point of like this dude trolling for his own name. So I think when that original clip was put up, it wasn't at Roland Martin, right? It wasn't like it was tweeted to him at all. So he had to look, or he has some, something where he's looking for his name in Twitter, and that's how he found it, or he's secretly following or something like that. But I agree to the fact that he took the time to respond to almost every single comment on Twitter. But two, I think if, we, like anybody's show, like, you make fun, you say things or whatever. In his positioning, if he was so interested in having a serious conversation about media, the role of corporations, the role of Black capitalism, I think there's room to engage, even if I seriously disagree, but engage on a serious level. This fool didn't want that. I think he's got something twisted in his mind that he thinks he's some street dude or he's some whatever, and he can just like bang or whatever, and that's going to be the end of it because he's well known or has got a lot of followers or whatever. So, so that it's like if, and I think you commented on a couple of times, it's like, if that's your level of engagement with the Black community, it again speaks to me about Again, we have, this is not the same thing, but differences with Cornell. At least Cornell was willing to engage and talk and have dialogue vis-a-vis his positioning, much well-known figure in terms of the Black community, and in terms of reaching a certain target of the Black community, which then those ideas filter into other aspects of life, right? I mean, that's what intellectuals do. They may reach a certain 1 to 5%, but that direct reach filters down to like ideas, which then starts to reach masses of people, right? So I on that level, I was just like, this dude has now doubled down for me, his clownishness, and confirmed for me like his clownishness and really negative impact, obviously continued negative impact on Black people organizing and doing anything else in the Democratic Party.
To the point of one of your tweets in that last statement right there, I looked on his page, which I hadn't looked at quite closely this closely in a minute. And one of the top more recent stories that he has done on his show was something in defense of an attack, as he was saying, on the Black woman. That was the title of the graphic. And it was a story about how members of the Democratic Party are challenging Kamala Harris. So it was as plain as day. It was he felt the need to come to the defense of Harris as a Black woman, and that's sort of the sort of surface level approach to race that he engages and does so well with. But it works, and I saw it. I mean, one of the last convocations that I went to in person was him at Morgan State. And he did, it was at a performative level, it was great. I mean, he's engaging, he's entertaining, he was rocking with the chorus and with the choir rather. I mean, he's got the whole performance. And he knew how to talk to that audience. Anyway, not much of substance, not much to help with analysis, but it was anyway. So listen, moving right along here, and this is sort of perfect, a nice little ease into things that are more serious. Hey, here we go again with this joint. What is up with the
You want to put it in the private chat now? I'll put it up.
Yeah, let me just do that. And hold on, I'm gonna have to do this first though, and then cut. This is. But listen, so this is a story about what used to be, and I can't really impress upon people, for me personally, what this has meant. You talk about the level of reform I've had to go through being a former. From birth, from the earliest of childhood, fan of the Washington football team and of American football. Like I would have spent so much time and energy as a young person, as a young man, following this team, invested emotionally. I remember when Dan Snyder came over and took over the team from Jack Kent Cooke. Jack Kent Cooke's son, and brought this energy, and people thought, okay, we got a young owner and we got this billionaire and it's about to take off. And all he has done to the fan base, to the team, is just destroy the energy, destroy the morale, the team has been whacked and persistently whack and whack and whack. And then all the way to get to the point where we are now, where if folks remember recently when Gruden, affectionately known before that as Chucky, lost his job with the Las Vegas team because of what came out in these emails about what he was saying racially and in terms of gender, whatever. The real investigation was into Snyder, and the reason they got those emails is because they were investigating what's been going on with the Washington football team under Dan Snyder for years. And in terms of pay, gender, sexual misconduct, all kinds of just shady nonsense. And it just comes out, the other day that, as it says here, Washington football team owner Dan Snyder reportedly enlisted his attorneys and private investigators to interfere with the investigator Beth Wilkinson's probe into the allegations of workplace misconduct and sexual harassment against the organization. Wilkinson in court filings later described phone calls to one of Snyder's lawyers as an attempt to silence the 2009 accuser. Snyder's attorneys have denied offering the woman additional hush money or trying to block Wilkinson's interview. It is not the only reported example of Snyder attempting to derail the NFL's investigation into the organization. Per that report, his lawyers filed petitions in federal court seeking in part to identify former employees who had spoken to the Post. The Washington Post, that is, an effort to, one federal judge suggested was intended to burden and harass former employees who had spoken against reporters, and so on and so on and so on. And so Snyder investigators showed up uninvited at the homes of several former employees or contacted their friends and relatives. So anyway, this dude was, trying to intimidate her, doing what, and I just wish at some point, like, the league would be forced to step in and say, just as would happen, and we could, in fact, just as we were talking about in terms of Roland Martin, advertisers run the show. And as I was pointing out yesterday with Procter and Gamble and all these folks spending hundreds of billions of dollars, this is so when advertisers threatened to walk away from the Washington football team if he didn't change the name, he did. He walked away from his previous claim that he would never change the name. He emphatically used to say, "I'm never changing the name." So I'm hoping now that advertisers will at some point feel like we need to walk away from this due to the point where the league says the team needs a new owner. You must sell. Let's get him out. Like what's his name from the Clippers a few years ago and stuff like that. Not that I'm suggesting this is some radical whatever. I would just like the very surface level, relatively easy thing. Get this dude out of here, man. Like, it's so.
But you remember, Jared, when he was taking all of the heat for the name change a few years ago, he went out and found some indigenous person who said, we don't have a problem with the name. And he propped that person up. He trotted that person out, saying it was a press conference and everything. It's like, see, we're not racist because look, there's a Native American who says we're not racist. And, but I mean, but people, I remember, and I too have grown up with, a love of the Washington football team. Marched in the Super Bowl parade in ROTC when I was in high school, that wet, cold, rainy day. Did that. It was great. I remember when Snyder bought the team, and a lot of people were excited, like you pointed out, Jared, but also like when he started getting involved in the day-to-day, the football operations, when he started, that's when people were like, hold up now. Wait now. You write the checks, dude. That's all you do. You are not the coach. You're not the coordinator. You're not any of those people. All you're supposed to do is write the checks. But he made it clear that he was a football fan and he had the money to finally realize his dream and not only own a football team, but basically run the football team the way he wanted to. And I mean, that's what he did. When he moved the team from RFK Stadium, man, I honestly don't know how people didn't riot, because
But Kent Cook had already done that, and they had moved. So that was part of the mythology that he was going to bring them back to DC, because they had already moved out to Raljon, Maryland. They renamed a part of Maryland under the son of Jack Kent Cook to place it out there, this new stadium.
Did that, yeah.
Snyder was promising to bring it back to DC. He was promising to bring back all the old glory and all this other. He's so phony, man.
And the first, like,
and remember, he did his first year. He did like a billionaire fanboy who made his money off of spam and email, all those email spams in the 90s and all that. He bought all those old players, that old superstar Bruce Smith and Deion Sanders and all these other players, and they were whack. They were old. They literally said after the fact, we wanted that check. He was the one giving out the big check, so we took the check. Anyway, he just has done so much that is whack. I could literally sit here for days talking about how bad this man is. But
yeah. I mean, if people don't
yeah.
realize like the level of sexual harassment and abuse that has gone on in the front office of and this is stuff that has been rumored for years and years and years.
And the pimping out of cheerleaders.
Oh
I mean,
my
that was part of the whole
God.
thing too.
Just
So I mean,
yeah, so it's like I too am like really perplexed at how Dan Snyder still not only still owns the team, but can still like show his face. but I think
because up
that
until
is,
recently, it was still one of the most valuable brands in the world. In fact, so I mean, it's crazy. That's how much he's destroyed the thing. Like you had anyway. It's just so whack, man.
And nothing's going to happen to him until there's a videotape of him or audio recording of him saying something. It's so weird. Like we live in a world where your actions of harassment, sexual harassment, or whatever, your actions of racism, whatever it is, your actions of mismanagement don't cause you to lose the position. But if you get caught saying something about the very same things that you've done, that will be the day.
Now it's a problem, right?
That's the kind of, so that's kind of the world we live in. As long as, like you said, he's got that bread, he's going to get away with it. Unless it's like something that totally brings down the value of the team. But that, that also brings to the point that NFL is still an owners league in the sense of the owners have they've done on their end a good job of making sure that the players are defaced, the personalities, relatively speaking, are interchangeable. Unlike the NBA, where individual players have at least can or sometimes do exercise so like some power to make some shifts. I think the NFL, except for a few players, for the most part, the owners have retained the sort of, I guess, the branding and the way in which the league is marketed, so that players become interchangeable chess pieces. And so their ability to sort of rack up some power to make some changes. And I'm not even saying they could. I think Kaepernick is a perfect example of somebody who, again, kicked out the league, never let back in again. Never. No, whatever the pressure was. He's never been let back in the league again. And so that shows the power of the ownership that they have even to this day. Like, I'm not sure of an NBA that could happen again the way it's happened before, with like a world be free and something like that.
They let a white lineman, Richie Incognito, who was incognito, was what I was about to say.
He was going to say because really his name.
No, incognito, but he was sending texts calling dudes niggers and talking about he's going to kill their mothers and do all kinds of shit. He was let back in, and he was given another job, and yet a quarterback who, this is again proof that they don't even care about winning. It's not even about winning. A quarterback, a Super Bowl at least playing in quarterback, you don't want him, but this lineman. Anyway, so it's just so many levels of nonsense. That's what I'm saying. But anyway, speaking of levels of nonsense, if you could help me out with the sharing this other story from actually, I don't know if technically the background of these people. I was about to say I was trying to make them my new favorite white scholars, but they don't do interviews. But I love this website, Wall Street on Parade, and it's a story about, because they just follow the financial sector and Wall Street in very detailed ways, and I think that some of the things that they pull out are fascinating. So in this latest, there's a couple stories this morning about cryptocurrency, and in this latest one from them, Senate Banking Committee chair says stable coins may be, quote, outright fraudulent. And one of the things that I was going to pull out from here that they say is, quote, so let's be clear about one thing. If you put your money in stable coins, and these are cryptocurrencies that are actually tied to something like the dollar or so it's actually, that's why they're called stable coins. They're supposed to be less volatile than Bitcoin and other coins that are they're supposed to be their own currency, which is another part of the mythology. But it says here, if you put your money in stable coins, there's no guarantee that you're going to get it back. They call it a currency, implying it's the same as having dollars in the bank and you can withdraw the money at any time. But many of these companies hide their terms and conditions in the fine print, allowing them to trap customers' money. And if there's no guarantee you'll get your money back, that's not a currency with a fixed value, it's gambling. And with this much money tied up, it sure looks to me like a potential asset bubble, end quote. So I know that these are not like radicals and people that we like and agree with who are saying this, but they are saying things that I see that seem to comport with what I'm seeing, at least, and the best that I'm trying, you know, I'm certainly no expert, that I see other experts saying. So one last piece from the story says, imagine attempting to explain to your grandchildren, to your children or grandchildren, why millions of Americans were willing to invest their hard-earned savings in dubious crypto offerings built on a complex blockchain that was solving complex mathematical problems with no purpose, while using as much energy as entire nations, thus adding to worsening climate change, which then traded on complex platforms with all the transparency of mud, end quote. So in other words, again, they keep saying, be transparent, it's open, it's not like the banking system, it's something new and different. But there's no, you don't know what's going on. You don't know what the value is going to be. You don't know who has the wealth, who's impacting the value of and if I could just quickly share one other one that relates to this story, and I don't know if it'll come up entirely because it is a New York Times story, but this is something that I actually want more help with. So I'm gonna share this, and then I'll stop talking and invite folks to help me understand this, because in this new story that came out in the New York Times, Crypto Banking and Decentralized Finance, where it says that this is all explained, they're talking about this one of these new platforms that are being used, similar to what was being discussed in the previous story. This one is called BlockFi, which it says here is among a new breed of institutions that outwardly look like banks, but are built around digital currencies. And again, we're being told that crypto is supposed to decentralize, change the world, upset the banking industry, etc. But as the previous story said, and this one shows, there seems to be a great degree of similarity between banks and these so-called new platforms. So as this story says quickly, crypto loans generally involve no credit checks as transactions are backed by digital assets. So that's one part under the question of what alternative banking services do crypto offer. Who's in this sector? The market is quickly being flooded with businesses from the vaguely familiar to science fiction like entities. They run the gamut from BlockFi, which offers interest-bearing accounts like a bank and has a state lender license, and Kraken Bank, which was granted a Wyoming bank charter and hopes to soon take retail deposits to markets controlled by computer code and devised to be governed by users through a token distribution structure. Compound, a decentralized automated lending and borrowing system, began in 2018 and now has more than $18 billion in assets earning interest. So that was sort of what got me wondering and wanting to ask this question, because as they started to talk about this thing called BlockFi and others like it, they're saying they're like banks, but not like banks because they work with digital currency, but they do offer interest and higher rates of interest than traditional banks to those who put their money on those platforms. So, as we're told this is something new and different, I'm seeing a great degree of similarity between these platforms that are just private businesses replacing private banks, maybe offering greater interest. But how do they offer greater interest? And I'm going to stop here because I feel like I'm taking too much time. It's taking longer than I thought. But if you continue on with that article about BlockFi and look into BlockFi, it seems to me that they're doing exactly the same thing, because how are you giving interest to people who invest or put their crypto on your platform? You are taking what people invest and investing it elsewhere and using that to create returns for the people who invest on your platform. in addition to taking what other people invest and using that to pay interest on previous investors, which again sounds to me like Bernie Madoff.
I was
like
about to say,
Ponzi,
that's a Ponzi
like everything
scheme.
else. I'm just
That
saying,
was my
like,
mind went was
what?
like,
That is a Ponzi scheme.
in this day and age with low interest rates so low. I mean, one of the reasons savings accounts don't offer the type of interest they did several years ago, like maybe now over a decade, obviously post the recession, is obviously that the feds have cut all the interest rates, and so the banks don't give you the yield that they used to. So for these cats to give you more than what the bank is giving, what it really means is that obviously they're not borrowing from the Fed, but so what it really means is that the money that they get first, that money is being dished out to the people who come later who are getting higher interest rates. And so if you invested early, you better watch out for when you try to get that money out, because it may not be there. And if there's any rush on that industry for saying, hey, we want to get our money out, there's going to be a collapse, because that money will not be there for folks to take back out in sort of, if there's a rush and there's a certain amount of people come out all at once and say, we want our money, there's going to be a mass issue with all of that cryptocurrency stuff. Because like you said, there's no regulation. There's no guarantee that your money is going to come back. And so there's and whatever things they have you sign in terms of your contractual relationship with them, I'm sure if you read the fine print, you talk about arbitration, you're talking about a risk of your investment that's going to make it be like, you knew the risk, you knew what you were getting into. That money is now gone.
I mean, it just seems like, and I know this is true in a capitalist society, that people want something that is an alternative to capitalism, but it's just capitalism. It's capitalism that's digital, right? It's capitalism that you're not getting a paper dollar bill as the legal representation of, it's still capitalism. And it's wild because people have invested so much energy into saying these alternative forms of finance are going to change the world, especially for marginalized people. And in the context that crypto mining contributes to climate change, it sure will change the world for poor
That's
people.
right.
In the worst way. But I mean, it's wild that people want so much, they will buy into any scheme, and this is a Ponzi scheme. I mean, NFTs is another weird kind of blockchain based, what the hell is that? I mean, I just feel like that's like, and we had Chris Garaffa on By Any Means Necessary Tuesday explaining NFTs, and I came away from his explanation of NFTs like even more perplexed. And I was like, people can't believe this makes sense, but they do. And it, I mean, it's like buying the rights to a GIF.
But that's what it is. And if you want,
what it is,
Jackie, if you want the change from Coke to Pepsi, that's what crypto is. And
that's
people
exactly
should think of that.
is.
But real change comes.
Is that it's a. I know you're about to do a great segue. My bad. I'm stepping.
I don't want to step on the segue.
I heard it. I was like, damn, I'm about to step on his great segue. Damn. I was like, let me get that one little point in. I like, damn, I stepped on that segue. But anyway, the real value of it, the real interesting thing is about the marketing that allowed this idea to surface and bubble up. First, as something that was getting people away from banks, something alternative, something that gets you away from other folks having access to your money because of the big bad banks. That marketing was something that got a lot, particularly folks on the left, all excited about crypto because they weren't going to be involved in the mainstream banking. And that kind of marketing has elevated to now to the point where this is part of the currency world or the finance world, and it's only getting bigger, even though there's so much secrecy and unknown information behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. And anyway, but all I was going to try to say is that the only real change comes from the ones and twos, as demonstrated so perfectly by our ear doctor, who looks like we got exclusive seats in the movie. We got first run seats. What's this?
Oh.
Yeah. I like to sit back and look at the whole hip hop elements and talk about it. So I'm gonna talk about top five Southern influence that made hip hop what it is today. Y'all ready for that?
I don't know. But let's do it anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the remix.
What's good? What's good, everybody? What's good? Welcome out to the Remix Morning Show. I am the Ear Doctor. And please make sure, once again, y'all hit those like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Right now, like I said, I want to get into what made Southern hip-hop what it is today. Throughout the decades, which are the most influential people that made Southern hip-hop what it is today. So I was like, let me start off with no other than the man that brought it to you. He goes by the name of Uncle Luke. That's right. 2 Live Crew, where Uncle Luke has 8 studio albums and 3 compilation albums, but his whole movement of Miami bass music and getting the explicit sticker put on hip-hop albums and stuff like that, that was Luther. So he definitely started off with the Miami bass in the 80s. Now, let's go to the next man that gave you the understanding of what it was down south. No other than my man Scarface from the Ghetto Boys. Scarface from the Ghetto Boys has over 11 studio albums and 2 compilation albums. But when you're talking about understanding what the South was about, giving us people like UGK, all types of other groups, it was definitely no other than Scarface. Next, I want to take you to who brought you into 2000s, but not to 2000s yet, but you can't go nowhere without the group known as Outkast. That's right. Outkast, who has 6 studio albums. And I mean, when you're talking about put the South on their back because they got something to say, Outkast was definitely one. I cannot even just say Andre 3000. You got to give respect to Big Boy also. So I'm going to give it to Outkast for that. Next, that I'm gonna have to go to no other than 2000 era. You had no other than Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne held it down for the 2000s. Him with Lil Jon for the snap music, T.I. for the trap music. But Lil Wayne brought the whole auto-tune, lyrical prowess, getting on mixtapes like crazy. You gotta think Lil Wayne did 25 mixtapes, 14 studio albums, and 3 compilation albums. And last but not least, who is the man that's doing it right now for the 2010 era and beyond? You must say Future. That's right. Future has 8 studio albums, 16 mixtapes. Pretty much if you was to listen to music right now and auto tunes and the just straight over and over repetitious choruses, yes, that's what we're hearing right now because of Future. So that is the breakdown of the Southern hip hop influencers right here on the Remix Morning Show. Let's take it back to our host. Yeah.
So T.I., so T.I. is not in your top? I know he got an honorable mention.
He's in an honorable mention because of his trap music, his bringing forth the trap music name. But as in 2000s, Lil Wayne held it down with all his 2 mixtapes. I mean, he was on everybody's song.
I'm not mad at that. I'm not a big aficionado of the Southern, just I know a few of them, so I'm not going to jump in all mad.
What you saying, Jackie?
No Master P though.
Oh,
no Master P.
Master P could get in there for the
Good.
Master P.
Good.
Master P
What?
and Outkast.
Good.
I have not always been holy.
For the 90s, I would definitely say Master P and Outkast. I definitely put Master P in there also.
Okay.
Hold up. Did I miss? Wait. I did get distracted. Did you not have Outkast on there?
Oh yeah,
Yes,
I
you
got
did.
Outkast on
Oh,
there.
yeah.
I was about to say. Wait a minute. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. It went from Uncle Luke to Scarface, Outkast to Lil Wayne to Future.
What was the cat? What was it about? Southern music.
Southern influences. Southern
what about
influences of rap, of hip hop.
So what about Cash Money and Master P? Like you said, Baby and or I guess Lil Wayne covered that.
Yeah, pretty much. That was the whole
Okay,
Cash
okay.
Oh,
Money.
Lil Wayne he takes all of that. Okay,
Takes
all
all
right.
that.
Well, Master P. I mean, I you know, with the little again about Southern rap, you got Master P. I think got to be put up in there.
Yeah, definitely.
Just for the production,
Thank you,
the
Jackie.
industry,
Thank you for that.
whatever.
Mhm.
Now that
That's what
money
we here
wise, I
for.
mean, just as far as just his building an empire, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. No doubt, no doubt.
Luke
So
was
that's
a
what it is.
problem. Luke was a problem. But I've always been consistent. You can't censor. So he was. They were really important on the political and the legal thing and all of that.
No doubt.
But they were difficult to have to try to defend that. I mean, it was and say like you can't censor that. That was woof.
Yeah. But right now, Southern hip hop is running things, so that's what it is. It brought us to this point right now. Remember the East Coast.
Even Kanye said future is the future.
And he problematic too, but I mean,
let's not even get into it. But that's what
And,
it is.
and Kanye knows. Kanye or Ye knows.
He knows problems.
he does know
knows.
problematic.
I came in at
He
the
knows
wrong time.
problematic
I
rap.
see.
You know who else who knows how to deal with problems?
Uh-oh.
Baba Balogun.
That man is on it.
He knows how to deal with problems. You know what I'm saying?
Balogun's a Siafu. What you
The
think?
king of
Duh.
No one's talking about that part, Kalanji. No.
Duh.
We're talking about calm it down.
Well, Balogun.
Calm it down. Don't
I
jump
know
in and
what
take
come out
credit.
live, Balogun. Don't worry about it. Don't worry
You're talking about Jay's segues right now.
Oh, okay.
Let me get my moment.
Okay.
Let me get my shine, man. Let me just
I
have
got
my
you, man.
moment. You never know what's going to happen again. I got to take it without, I can't be held to the standard. You know what I'm saying?
I came on here. I thought you
don't
Prince with
segues
the
in a row.
Okay.
Hey.
Okay. So what happened when I'm not here? Thank you, Jared. I'm here now.
Yeah, doing the best we can. So let's do that, man. Let's get this taste of the warrior class, man, and learn how to deal with some problems the right way.
Technique
right
of the week.
Remix Morning.
Hey, peace, everybody. I'm Balogun Ojitade, and this is Belay. He's a little bit under the weather. That's why he looks a little different today. No, actually, I'm in my daughter's room shooting because everybody's everywhere. So I had to come somewhere where I can get some quiet. Today, I want to talk about a person that's problematic. Well, I thought about him. And he sparked this. What's that big head dude? Look like a black Chucky. Roland Martin. That dude talking about slapping folks and all of that. He said, "Well, how dare he? He'll get his ass whooped." Well, there's a reason why we people, particularly men, why we do this. But studies have shown that women just as much do this. I'm going to talk about Black folks. Well, it's really American folks, but I deal with us mainly. But why 6% of us think we could beat a grizzly bear in a fight, unarmed. Okay. So a study came out and it was talking about what human beings think they could deal with, what they think they could beat. 72% said they could beat a rat. 69% said they could beat a house cat. And I want you to think about these things. Think what you could beat unarmed with just your bare hands. 61% said a goose. 49% said a medium-sized dog. Okay, like a pit bull is a medium-sized dog. 30% said an eagle. 23% said a large dog like a German Shepherd, a Cane Corso. Okay, 30%. That's a third of the people. This was done on Americans, so a third of the people in America, men and women, it's pretty even across the board. 17% said a chimpanzee. 15% said a king cobra. 14% said a kangaroo. I don't know if you've ever seen the kangaroo. Look them up. They're diesel, okay? But hey, 12% said a wolf. I hope you don't hear my dog down there. 9% said a crocodile. 8% said a gorilla. 8% said let me see, is that 8? Yeah, 8% said an elephant. 8% said a lion. And 6% said a grizzly bear. Now, how does this relate to Roland Martin? The reason why people would dare to believe they could even unarmed whoop a rat. Most people know if a rat came in right now, you'd be jumping up on shit. Oh, help me. Right? A goose just flies out of nowhere, starts pecking you. You're not going to just be, whooping it, back fisting it and all that. You're going to be hauling ass. But the reason why people, when asked, can they do such and such? Can they do this? Most people cannot fight. Most people cannot scientifically and intelligently defend themselves. This is why people like me make a living. People come to me so they can learn how to, because most people just really don't allow them. Most people's egos don't allow them to do so. And that's what we're talking about. So human beings are made to defend their babies, family, their community, their people. We're born to do that. That's instinctive. So you take a person who instinctively is supposed to be able to do these things, but can't. They know they can. They should be able to. So they will lie to themselves. They will lie to other people and say, oh, yeah, I can. Most fathers who know they can't fight their way out of a wet paper bag, they talk to their child like they, could whoop Tyson. And they say, this is what you do to knock out Mike Tyson. Because they are responsible for the protection of their family. And women too. So they'll do the same thing, but less so men, we really think we gotta, So when a person says they'll beat a gorilla, it's not surprising to me because it is our instinct to say I can protect myself, my family, my people against any threat. Okay. Well, you have to train and you have to be realistic. I've been trained. It'll be 50 years in April. I'm well trained. I'm good at what I do. And there's no way I could touch a damn gorilla, a crocodile, a wolf, a dog. Hell no. My dog, when she's still a puppy, German Shepherd, when she was about 6 months old, excited to go outside, she hit my finger against a railing and broke my finger. Animals have immense strength, way beyond us. We have red muscle fibers. They have white muscle fibers. No human being can match the strength of an animal. You can see a little ant dragging a lizard 400-500 times its size across the ground, 400-500 or more. It's like it's pulling a car. Can any of us here pull a car? No, we don't compare to an animal's strength. Most people in a fight with a house cat gonna be running. That's the reality, but nobody's going to admit that. So Roland Martin saying he would slap the hell out of Kamal or Kalanji or Jared or who on the show. If he's watched the show, then he's probably seen at least my picture up there. Me, Roland Martin would get his ass handed to him by any of us or the ear doctor. He would get his ass handed to us, but he has to say, his ego and his instinct makes him have to say, I slapped some fool, so and so. What did he have to say? No, he could have kept his mouth shut. But that's where that comes from. So when people say that, I don't get threatened. All I say to folks is, just show and prove. I was on a bus. I defended another man against somebody threatening him. I shouldn't have. When I thought back on, he should have defended himself, or I would have helped him if he at least defended himself. And this is a grown strapping man. And he's my friend to this day, though. But he was threatened by this. Everybody was fooled by this young man. And I just said, man, you don't have to do the brother like that. He said, man, I snatched your teeth out. I said, well, shit. Now, I still had teeth in here then. I said, but some of them, I said, well, shit, most of them have them gone anyway. So come on, snatch them. Huh? Come snatch my teeth. He's just looking. I said, no. What? Shut up, man. I said, no. I'm going to shut up. Just come snatch my teeth. I want you to. We were on a bus. This sister, I had my children with me. The sister said, I watch your children. I knew the sister. I watch your children. People wanted this dude handled. I said, well, when we get to the place, the bus driver pulled over. I'll wait right here. I said, oh, yeah, cool. Let's step outside and, handle this. Man, go ahead. Just drive, bus driver. I told everybody on the bus, see, he's had y'all food. He's had y'all food for the longest. He gets on here. Everybody's scared. I've watched him. I haven't said anything until now. It's just out of hand. See, but he got your food. He fooled you. You thought he was so tough. I knew he wasn't tough. He had to, for whatever reason, go beyond and just show that. But when it's something that's challenged in his mind, he has to show that. Well, Roland Martin, the same thing. He has to show that. But Roland Martin, I know you're watching. Roll that back, because you will get your ass whooped by anybody on this show. And if you really want to do that, I'm here. If you can come to Atlanta, you're welcome to come to my school. After I beat the shit out you, I give you free lessons for a year. All right. So I just wanted to say that and just talk about this is why he's doing what he's doing. Love y'all. Stay black. Join us this Saturday on the Warrior Class, where we get into some more good stuff. 1 o'clock, Black Power Media. Love y'all. Peace.
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
man.
Balogun mad. That's goddamn though.
Well,
Oh,
I'm
goddamn.
grateful. As a true African, I just want to say this. Balogun just showed us the African way. Not only did he offer to whoop your ass, but he's gonna give you free lessons after a year full of lessons. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. I mean, those classes are great classes.
let that man speak for himself, because I don't want no parts of Roland Martin. I don't want to see Roland. He got a low center of gravity. I'm old. I don't want no parts. I need my health care for other reasons. I haven't trained and I haven't been training. I haven't been in a real fight. And I can't even tell how long. I don't want no parts of Roland. Roland might be in these streets swinging on a daily.
As a weapon, so
you know what I'm saying? I don't want. So if he wants to slap somebody, I'm sure somebody on this platform will take him up. Balogun's stepped up, but I don't want to see. If Roland, you run up on me, man, I don't want nothing but a dap and a pound, man. Or let's just acknowledge each other and keep on walking, man. I don't want no problem. Man.
Listen,
man, let's hug it out, man.
He gonna come up to your belly button, but y'all gonna hug it out.
Yeah, me, I welcome that slap. I'm cool with it. You know what I'm saying?
There you
slap
go.
Me, Roland. I'll sit there and let you slap me. And after I finish laughing my ass off, then I will make sure that you are in good hands. And I'll just say that. So, but anyway, How
Oh
y'all
my
doing
gosh.
today? Balogun on here
That
starting
is
trouble this
funny.
morning, man. You can't take Africans nowhere. Anyway, welcome to the Remix
So look,
Morning Show.
Yeah, we had talked about we wanted to begin highlighting and building with some folks that do some media work that we appreciate, and we got at least one half of a crew that I think, if I'm not mistaken, when we started talking about it, they were one of the first names that came up. I think we all just sort of said, this group. So why don't we come back? Let's take a quick break and come on back and talk with the founders of Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. Great name. Very attractive name.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Great podcast. So let's wrap. Let's wrap with the good folks of Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. Right here, the Remix Morning Show. Black Power Media. So as folks will notice right off the top, one half of the crew for Millennials Are Killing Capitalism in here, and we intentionally picked him because he's got the correct name. So Jared Ware, welcome to the show. It's good to see you again. Welcome. Good morning. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Jared, and good to see you all.
What's that?
Hey.
Welcome.
So as we were saying, yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to ask, why don't we start by obviously the second half is not here, but talk a little bit about the origins for me, the origins of Millennials are Killing Capitalism, because I agree with what our Jad was saying, is that it's one of those things that has sort of taken off on the left in particular for its insight, its views, its take on things. And the different perspectives that it brings forth, and it's one of those. It's really been an exciting thing. Like when I heard of it and I started going through episodes, I was like, oh, this shit is good. Okay, let me keep listening to that. So, what was the origins of the idea and where it came from?
Yeah, so we started in 2017, and at the time there were left-wing podcasts, but we felt like a lot of them really focused on like kind of the band of folks that we would classify as progressive, social democrats, liberal democrats, and we really felt like there was a lack, specifically at that time, of anti-imperialist podcasts, of podcasts that were really looking at the revolutionary left broadly, internationally, as well as within the US. And so we felt like that was an intervention that needed to happen. And I think for both Josh and myself, we were still figuring stuff out, especially at that time, in terms of like what are our own political leanings exactly, right? And I mean, obviously, that's always somewhat of a work in progress for everybody, I think. But for us, we didn't, I was probably a little bit more anarchistic leaning, although still very much interested in socialism. Josh more towards the like state socialism, scientific socialism thought. And so we thought, let's just explore as much as we can, educate ourselves in that process. And then as we're doing that, hopefully people will be able to join us in that exploration and figure out where they fit, because we also assumed that a lot of that lack of like real clarity was something that was not just us, right? That there were a lot of people that were like, I don't really know exactly what my politics are, but I do know that what's going on right now, is not what I'm looking for.
Yeah, right on. You all, speaking of, as you talk about the politics of that inform you and Josh, one of the things that I notice in the work that you all do is that you seem to be in touch with a very diverse array of the world's majority, sometimes called minorities, around these parts. But you seem to be, you all deeply engaged with pockets of Black and brown folks around the world that I mean, in many ways, well, a lot of them I've never heard of, haven't engaged their work, and I find fascinating at the expansiveness of it. So even as you all, start with, as you said, the sort of anarchist socialist traditions, how is it that you've found, or is it that you're saying that the world's majority is as engaged with those politics as any others? But how is it that you've all? I'm just sort of, how did your trajectory, encapsulate this wide array of folks? I mean, you just did something on Cabral the other day, or more recently. Anyway, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, we try our best at this, and it's always a work in progress, right? Is that, like, for one, we don't think that what's going on in the United States is the most revolutionary manifestations of radical politics that are going on around the world, right? Like, so we actively try to combat kind of U.S. chauvinism or American exceptionalism as paradigms, and that even plays out on the left, I think, where a lot of times people think that our movements are somehow like more radical, right, than what's going on in like Bolivia or Venezuela, or what happened historically with African liberation movements, right? And so we just reject that out of hand and say, look, there's different conditions and different circumstances that lead to these struggles around the world, for sure. But there's a lot, we can learn more, I think, from engaging a lot of these movements than we can from, like, especially kind of navel gazing, left-wing discussion, and a lot of like, I mean, one thing that we do very little on is Europe, right? Like, there's no revolutionary socialist history in Western Europe. It doesn't, like, there've been movements, but nobody's ever had a successful socialist revolution in Western Europe. So we don't spend a lot of time like putting primacy on, we give credit to Marx and Engels for things that they added to the struggles internationally, and tools that people have used, but that's not our center of attention. And even within the left in the US, like, we look a lot at the Black liberation struggle. We also have done we haven't done enough on like struggles of Latin Americans in the United States, and but we have done some stuff on borders and engaging with indigenous liberation movements, decolonization. So yeah, I mean, I think to sort of encapsulate it, I think we just believe that that chauvinism tends to limit our knowledge of what it actually takes to have a revolution more broadly.
Yeah, Jared, I like the title and the concept, especially behind the title. Millennials are killing capitalism, because in US media, at least, and I'm pretty sure probably in other Western outlets, the whole millennial the focus on millennials has always been very negative, how they're literally like destroying the institutions of the countries that we know and love. But like, that's the point, right? I mean, that is the entire point, is that there is a new generation of folks who have come into these societies in these countries where capitalism and patriarchy, white supremacy and classism and other isms have marginalized people and created these societies where millennials can't survive, and they're just not gonna stand for it, and they're intentionally killing capitalism. And so I really love how you all turned that negative, like, accusatory focus on, oh, millennials are destroying everything, turned it right around to, yep, we sure are. I really dig that and appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an aspiration, right? More than it is an actual reality. I mean, I think I wish, I mean, I do think that younger folks, millennials, Generation Z, right, that we've had strong we've had social movements, right, that have had a good bit of energy. I think there's a lot of work that we have to do to turn those into actual revolutionary movements and actually get to a place where we could really have a serious conversation about battling capitalism or imperialism, right? But that is the goal, you know, and I think that you're right. Like, we were obviously looking at this sort of theme within bourgeois media to demonize younger folks for not participating in capitalism in the ways that our parents and our grandparents' generations did, which obviously doesn't examine the fact that, like, you know, millennials don't have the money or the resources because of the way that capitalism has shifted with neoliberalism, right? And so, you know, we thought it was kind of funny. It is interesting because, like, every once in a while we get really conservative people that reach out to us to try to come on the show that obviously haven't listened to it, but think that we're against millennials, right? And so they're like, you know, they're like, oh yeah, like the millennials are killing capitalism. Like, we want to talk about what's wrong with young people.
Oh, so you can go get them and straighten them out.
Right. And we're like, no, like, we're trying to kill capitalism. Like, you know,
and you're like, no, they're not doing it enough.
Right. So, but I think it's a name that certainly, like, when people hear it, you know, they remember it, you know, and so I think it has that, you know, we were lucky in terms of, like, landing a name, I guess, that sticks with folks too.
When you speak on revolution, what is define what revolution looks like to you, and who do you say should lead said revolution?
Yeah, like in the United States or like globally?
I'm talking globally.
Yeah,
I mean, because of the fact I don't think that, you know, it's going to have to impact on a global level if it's going to be a successful revolution.
Right, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I think, like,
or both, shall I say?
Yeah, it's related, right? I think obviously we look at the United States as the heart of empire, right? And so we look at it as playing we look at the defeating of empire, right, as a crucial element in terms of what would be a global revolution. And in that, you know, we basically mean the hearts of, like, wherever capital is accumulating most starkly, wherever there is the most strongly militarized, you know, manifestations of defending that, right? And so with that, we see United States, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, you know, as kind of like the hubs of that, you know, and as far as, like, who do we see as revolutionary agents, I think most broadly, when you look at it, I think that South America, Latin America, I think Africa, I think Asia, right, are all areas where the level of class analysis, the understanding of imperialism, and the degree of struggle is much higher historically and currently than it is within the United States. However, there's certainly, obviously, I mean, we just had last year, like, with the uprisings after the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and things like that, there is an increase in activity in the United States that we think could potentially move in a more revolutionary direction. And we see that as led by Black and brown people in the United States. And so, like, for me as a white person, right, it's just sort of like, honestly, you know, I look at things like decolonization and sort of a balkanization of the United States into, like, sort of different territories, right, as like a possible phase of what could be a global revolution.
Okay, so I mean, you mentioned being a white person, of course, we know that part, but what
I'm shocked. I'm personally shocked.
Y'all kind of look like, you know, like
I was gonna say,
you
know what I'm saying? You never know. I mean, you never know. So you just, you know, you can't just throw that on somebody, you know,
no
just
doubt.
be careful now. So
but real quick,
I'm just playing.
Real quick, I wanted to know, like, the role of the white left, because of the fact that, of course, when you talk about revolution, oftentimes, you know, for instance, you mentioned the whole George Floyd case. I think that this was the first time that in the streets, in many places, a lot of the uprisings were commandeered, for lack of better words, by the white left, which hasn't been a tradition as far as my experience over the last 35 years or whatever. So I wanted to know, what do you think the role of the white left should be in a global or a national revolution?
And if I could just jump in and piggyback, because I wanted to, because specifically, how do you define that left? Because if folks don't know, Jared will actually talk to and about political prisoners and prisoners in general,
No doubt,
which
no doubt.
automatically distinguishes him from a whole swath.
Yeah, and that's why that's not even a question I would ask a lot of people. Is because of his work that I'm asking that.
Right on.
Yeah, so I don't think it's to lead, right? Like, that's first of all, right? I don't think the role of the white left is to lead. I also don't think it's necessarily to to just find some group of like Black organizers to latch onto. I think it's in terms of like, obviously we have a lot of our own work to do. And I think that, in part of what you try to do, what I try to do, right, is to look at a kind of counter history of the white left. There's, obviously the history of like the CPUSA and IWW and things like that, right? But I think that, for me, like what I draw most inspiration from is like folks like Laura Whitehorn, folks like John Brown, folks like let's see, I mean, just other folks like from the kind
Maryland
of
Buck, folks like that.
Yeah. And so we try to talk to folks. We had like Ray Luke Lavasseur on here on our show like a month or so ago, a couple months ago. So folks who have participated from a kind of revolutionary anti-imperialist stance and saying like, okay, like we believe in Black self-determination. We believe in the right of Indigenous people to self-determination. Obviously we come from this, messed up history, right, of like, settler colonialism and slavery, right? But I think part of what folks have to understand is that you have a choice, right, in terms of like who you're going to align with and how you're going to struggle. And you don't have to struggle just on the terms of like, what is the lowest common denominator of like, okay, we all need healthcare, we all want higher wages, things like that, because that's, in my mind, not revolutionary, right? It's just pointing towards a sort of reformism, of a kind of like I said in the beginning, like sort of progressivism or social democratic politics, which we actually think are still capitalist and imperialist, but just more about like dividing up the pie more equally.
You know what, Jared? Let me ask you. Let me be a devil's advocate here, because
Sure.
in a lot of and I don't say that I'm devilish all the time, Kamau. I see it. I see it on your face. Let me you too, Jared Ball. Let me ask you this. Now, a lot of black radical revolutionary spaces, let me just be honest, you would not be welcome because you are a non-black person. However you want to put it. And there are people who would say, we don't trust you regardless of what your politics are. We don't want to hear what you have to say because we automatically think you're an agent. And I get that there is some history to our spaces and our movements being infiltrated by white people who, yes, were indeed agents, but also sometimes by white people who just honestly didn't know their place and thought, from that very white supremacist thinking, I'm here to help, and helping means that, I have better ideas than you do. How do you respond to that kind of response to you from black radical, from black left spaces, if you get that? And I mean, what do you think the response should be to that kind of attitude? I mean, because let's be real, this is a struggle that we do have, both protecting black radical spaces and movements and people from infiltration, but also realizing that we can't work in silos, that there are struggles that are universal in some aspects, while our struggles are also unique. So how do you assess that? How do you see that? And what do you think the response to that kind of criticism, valid or not, should be for genuine white radical leftists?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think for one, like I've never felt the need to insert myself into a Black organization that is looking to organize as Black people around like meaning that I don't I don't necessarily think that it's my space to come into your organizing space or your meeting space unless I'm invited to talk about something, which things like that happen, right? But I think that that's one of the things with white people, right? Is that we generally have an impulse to say like, oh, like we can go anywhere and we can come into any space and why wouldn't we be welcome, right? People should be happy or to have us, right? Or like, and I think there is some on the left in general. I think there's sometimes we have a problem of being a little too insular in our spaces and not opening up enough to like bring people in. But I think that there's also reasons why, like you said, that Black radical spaces, particularly those that come from like a nationalist or a national liberation tradition, are going to be a little bit wary of the random white leftist. And I think also like there's a lot of work that can be done organizing with other white people around supporting movements that are looking for support in strategic ways. And so I don't look at it as like, yeah, I just want to be an ally or something like that. But I do think that I do try to stay in dialogue, right, with like a lot of different organizations and people. And then there's work that I do that's separate from that, which is a lot of it has to do with prisoners. And what I find with prisoners is that you don't see that as much, even if they come from a more nationalist tradition, because they need all the support that they can get usually. And so they're just like, here's what I need from you. And usually they're very specific, right? Like it's not like, yeah, like just do whatever you want. They're like, this is what we're working on. This is what we're trying to accomplish. Like, how can you plug into this? This is what I need you to do. Right. And so that's been a useful thing for me in terms of my own organizing. Because I can enter it and I can have dialogue with people. I can disagree with people, but at the end of the day, like it's very specific in terms of like what I can contribute concretely. Whereas like, I think for folks on the outside, it's a little bit different dynamic sometimes. And I understand that. And I think the work over time speaks for itself. Right. So it's like, I understand that all of that hesitation is warranted. And so I don't take it personally when I encounter it at all. I understand that like there's a political reason for that.
Your work.
For me, I'm
excellent,
jumping. So
just from checking out what you've done. You know what I'm saying, as far as jailhouse lawyers, and what I mean. So definitely salute to you for your organizing as well. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Come on.
Oh no, I'm sorry. So I wanted to, because the podcast is tagged millennials. Obviously, you interact with folks, younger and older. But is there any specific politic, like left politic, that you think millennials have either introduced or have held on to, which has opened up or bettered political thought, ideas, added to part of the array of discussion that you think maybe past generations, older folks, we talked about being clustered or too clustered, like some things around like queer theory come to mind, or things like that. That you, what do you think the contribution, if you can say, of a generation of people is to political thought and ideas and actions in terms of millennials?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like one quick point is that in some ways, one of the things I regret most about the title of the show, right, is that it can imply a certain like generational division that we didn't necessarily mean, which is like part of our interest in the show is actually connecting younger struggles with past struggles, which is why we have so many movement veterans and things like that on the show, is because we want people to understand that like this is a long history. There are even more radical manifestations of this history, and that we have a lot to learn, even from, movements within the United States, particularly in current times, because some of these folks, of course, thankfully, are still with us, of like the 60s, 70s, etc. Right. And I think in terms of contributions of millennials, it's a mixed bag for sure. I do think that in terms of like being conscious of who we are excluding by how we organize, there's a lot of work around that, and that's still a work in progress, I think, because there, as I like, you get too broad, you bring in more contradictions, and sometimes that can be the undoing of your organization. And I think we've seen some of that, but I also think that there is the thinking around disability, thinking around gender, as you mentioned, thinking around LBGT communities. Like, how do we make sure that we're not excluding folks from these spaces by our own preconceived biases and things like that, which are often like unintended, right? But like, how does that manifest in ways that keep people from coming in? I think there's definitely some contributions from younger folks with regard to all of that. I think radical feminism, right? Like Black feminism, and also kind of proletarian feminism are pieces that I see people picking up more and more. So I think like there's definitely some positive elements from all of that. But I think the question is, can it cohere in ways that like really advance radical struggle in ways that actually disrupt the system and disrupt capitalism, kind of like at the point of production and all of those things. Like, I think there's still some ways in which our movement can fall into kind of academic spaces, student spaces, intellectual spaces, that are unhealthy at times.
Right on. Hey, no, go ahead, Kalanji, go ahead.
No. I was just saying, man, it's the thing that I like about the podcast is not only it's not a talking head situation, so we could appreciate that, and also acknowledging, like you said, folks behind the wall. I mean, to me, that's one of the most important parts of our struggle when we're talking about any type of liberation, because of the fact that I'm literally right now struggling with the thought of so many of our elders and ancestors who are literally rotting away. I know 6 terminally ill vets, 3 of them which are former political prisoners, and 3 who are still behind the wall right now. And just the level of just folks ignoring, it's like free such and such, and then they're free, and it's like you don't give a damn about them, or it's just crazy. So I appreciate the organizational perspective as well. So definitely salute for your work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we have some collaborative projects coming specifically around prisoner work as well, and I definitely appreciate that. And we thank you for coming through, and look forward next time we'll catch up with Josh, and shout out to him as well, and keep listening to the podcast, and encourage people to check it out if they haven't already. Millennials are killing capitalism. I don't know why I'm struggling with that. Millennials, I usually just say Mac capitalism.
Because you're not a millennial, and subjectively, deep in your psyche, it upsets you.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't roll off the tongue as easily, and it's also hard for people to spell is the other thing that we found out, and so that's
I bet I would need spell check.
You trying to say Jared can't spell?
How many N's too?
Okay.
Oh yeah.
How many L's?
Real Jared, stand up. Anyway,
that's messed up.
Well,
thank
to
you
the
all.
remix.
Thank you
Well,
all.
Look, man, the two of us have to resuscitate the name. I mean, it's been
Right.
beaten up a lot over the last decade or so, as people have a lot of more famous misappropriation of the name. I grew up most of my life. I never met another Jared, particularly spelled this way, and now all of a sudden, Cat's just been destroying the legacy
Wasn't that
of the
Subway
name.
dude? Was that Subway dude named
Exactly.
Yes,
He started
yes.
it. Him,
Kushner.
the Trump dude,
Yeah.
the jeweler, the diamond store, all of that
Oh my
stuff.
God. Yeah,
Like
that's
all of
changed
that
my name
stuff.
if I was
Like
y'all.
it's
I
a whole.
that is.
Man,
Oh,
y'all
I'm
gotta
so sorry.
Counterinsurgency
if I was
against the
y'all.
Jareds.
that's what it is.
Nah, man, I'm
Yeah,
trying to
redeem
stand
money.
up.
You can't
Man,
redeem certain
they
things.
should change their name. I'm like
Right.
dude from the movie Office Space. Michael Bolton should change his name. I was Jared first.
I mean,
They changed their name.
the remix can change the name to Gerard. So I mean, you think that might
Yeah,
Nah, man.
just call you Gerard.
yeah, I mean
Nah, man.
Gerard.
Nah, man. Nah, nah.
Jared,
nah,
I'm about to start
nah.
a new podcast called Gerards Are Killing Capitalism. What y'all think about that?
I'm down with that. I'm down with
Dope,
that.
Anyway,
Dope.
Jared Ware, thank you very much, man. Shout out to you and the crew and at Millennials Are Killing Capitalism. And we'll check back with you shortly. Appreciate you, my man.
Salute.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for having me on, and just want to say we love what you're doing here at Black Power Media. I'm a member, and just keep building. This is like my favorite thing that's happened this year. So shout out to you all too.
Appreciate
Right on.
that.
Thank you. And you all heard him. He said he's a member.
I am a member. I pay.
Don't know
So if
about
you're not
that.
paying, then pay. So
Yeah.
Y'all,
Okay.
There it
Okay.
is.
Okay. He just
All right.
slapped like 8
I bet
people
his
in a
credit
row.
card stays healthy.
that's right. I had to up it once. It canceled on me, and then I had to. Yeah, but I did it.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about
Thank
it. Long as you,
No, worry
long as
about
you
it.
don't go-
Worry about it. Worry about
Yeah.
it. Please,
Anyway.
remix.
Right on, right on. Welcome
was the
back. We
original
get ready to
Jahar.
wrap it up here. Man, straight up, man. When I think about that scene in Office Space all the time, man. I'm the original Jared. He should change his name. They should all change their name. You know what I'm saying? Like take the, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, shout out to Office Space, classic
that's
films.
one of my
By the way,
favorites.
two things. Real quick updates. Just got an email back from the good Adolph Reed Jr. So we are going to be able to work something out, get him on shortly, as soon as we can. And tomorrow morning, we want to invite people to my attempt to extend the Remix Morning Show to 5 days a week, with some more boom bap breakfast, because we also just confirmed that my man Asheru was going to join us tomorrow. So if folks don't know, this is DC hip hop legend, to some most famously known for having done the theme song to the Boondocks. So we're going to talk about that and his career, international touring, his work with education. It's going to be a good time with him and Kyle Ba, and one of the dopest MCs of our generation for sure, if not beyond that. So anyway, just two quick updates that happened while we were talking to Jared Ware there a second. So,
Nice.
very exciting
Nice.
stuff.
Very nice.
I mean, with our last 9 minutes left, I just wanted us to any sort of last ideas, thinking particularly on bell hooks. With the last few minutes left or whatever like that with her passing, we talked about it at the beginning. But I thought again, even if folks disagreed with her, she played such a seminal role. Not only, actually talk about millennials and the generation right above them in terms of issuing in a new wave of sort of Black feminist thought, radical critiquing of capitalism and organizing. And so it's been such an important loss for the larger And Bell Hooks probably represented all those things we talked about at the beginning in terms of what would you label yourself and more, right? So I just think sort of like on our way out, people had some more perspective or ideas.
No, I actually did. And the clip I wanted to play, I'll just play tomorrow morning as part of that conversation, since I think we've mostly run out of time. But the point of it was, it's I don't know, 6 or some minutes.
You scared?
No, it's not that. It's that I know we got Ear Doctor and we got 4 people on the screen, so I didn't want to just, close, I mean, but the crux of it, and plus it's, it would be a tease for tomorrow and let people just come back tomorrow morning. But the point of the clip is essentially that for me, Bell Hooks has played a fundamental role if in no other area in the my attitude towards the use of pop culture in analysis and in the classroom. And the clip that I will play tomorrow, it's her talking about why she is engaged pop culture as an educator, and in particular the racial, obviously, but also the class positioning that she applied to that purpose. And I have fully adopted that and tried to emulate that in my own work. That we can't just leave that. That is pop culture and so-called entertainment. We can't just leave that to be discussed or not discussed by the broader popular world. It's got to be brought into some radical analysis, because that's where a lot of people are. A lot of young people, students, the people we want to organize, they are watching these movies, they are watching these shows, and they're taking a lot more from them than even they want to acknowledge or admit. So anyway, for me, that she's always been essential to that. And anyway.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think as of late, the thing that she did that I think was the most, I won't say most important, but culturally speaking, was I think resonated the most was her critique of Beyonce's Lemonade. And I thought that was important because obviously Beyonce is like a cultural force all her own, right? In some
untouchable
aspect, for good or for good or bad. And it's that untouchable part that makes her persona as a cultural icon even worse, because she is a capitalist. What she really is a capitalist cultural icon. Or an icon of capitalist culture, or whatever you want to call it. But Bell Hooks, I think, so eloquently and perfectly critiqued all of the problems with the commodification of the female Black body that Beyonce profits off of, and that is just such a central part of Lemonade. That, I mean, if you didn't read it, I think we are doing ourselves a disservice not to read Bell Hooks's critique of Lemonade, because I do think that if we do read that, then we would understand why so many of us radicals have such a problem with Beyonce and her art, so to speak. So I mean, if people are not wanting to go back into the whole history and the bibliography of all of Bell Hooks' work, I would say start with her critique of Lemonade and then work backwards, and then you'll understand how important Bell Hooks was.
To me, Bell Hooks, besides being an obvious cultural icon, and the fact that her passing is somewhat a reminder of the shifting of the guards, for lack of better words. You know what I'm saying? A reminder of us moving forward and marching on and moving into eldership, so on and so forth. But when I think of her, one of her quotes that stood out for me was she said, sometimes people try to destroy you precisely because they recognize your power, not because they don't see it, but because they see it and they don't want it to exist. For me, that's always been in my mind, in my spirit, the story of my life. You know what I'm saying? So I can appreciate. It reminds me of something that I heard another professor we all know and love talk about some months back, and it's you know, you know, my one regret is the fact that we didn't get her on Black Power Media. You know what I'm saying? Before she transitioned, you know, because of the fact that there's so much that I would have loved to pick her brain on. You know what I'm saying? But definitely, you know, rise in power, and you know, may a million more bell hooks be born.
Jackie, are you doing something specific around that essay for any of your broadcasts or work? Because I just pulled it up, and I think yeah. Anyway, are you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that's the show Friday night, because I went back and I went back and I read that and I remember when she called Beyonce a terrorist, and I just remember that was like that was just so perfect. But yeah, I do want to talk about Friday, the critical acclaim and the cultural embrace of Lemonade, but how Bell Hooks so perfectly pointed out all of the problems with Lemonade and Beyonce in general as a cultural icon. So yeah, that actually is the show Friday. Look at
right
that.
on, because it is titled Lemonade. Beyonce's Lemonade is capitalist money making at its best. So I look forward to checking that out. And oh dang, I just lost what I was going to say about that. Damn it. Anyway, so I look forward to checking out what you have to say about that for sure. Dang, what was I going to say?
I don't
that
know.
Bell Hooks just anyway. Damn, it just left
Bell
that
Hooks,
fast.
Beyonce.
Oh no, that's what it was. That it's written that I thought it was interesting that as I pulled it up here that it was thank you. It was published in the Guardian, which is something that in terms of, even as you were just saying that about having wished she had been able to be on this platform, it seemed that Bell Hooks had I don't know, this is off the top of my head, a very odd positioning in all of this, where on the one hand, we never saw her in American mainstream media, but though she was often referenced in American mainstream media, at least after, as she said at one point in her own career, after during the OJ trial, where she was asked to come on a popular commercial TV and give her perspective, and she said the line that got her excised from that permanently was that she said, "Yes, the one thing I want to say about OJ Simpson is that it began and ended with male violence." And they were looking for her, she said, to be the black woman defending the black man. But she in that moment, and this is what got her in a lot of trouble within black circles as well. She was in that moment saying, no, this is an issue of men against women. And one of the points that I always appreciated that she made was, and with the help of Dr. Sucha Ali and the Media Education Foundation, they showed a clip where Bell Hooks is talking about this, about how black women in battered homes, in shelters for battered women, were cheering OJ's acquittal, while, you know, as Bell Hooks is trying to make this point that this is where from her perspective, and I probably agree here, the confusion over race had women lose sight of. I don't know if I agree with that entirely, but anyway, but her perspective was, had women lose sight of their position vis-a-vis men, and where black women again were cheering the victory of this clearly abusive man simply because he was or is black. So I mean, but anyway, the point is that mainstream media here got rid of Bell Hooks from that point on. There's no room for that level of nuance or conversation. But then she would appear at like very mainstream academic platforms, hosting Melissa Harris Parry and whoever else she was doing these interviews with back a couple of years ago. So it's this very interesting place that she has. But then for a current thought piece on American pop culture, she's got to go to England to publish it because nobody wants to hear about that here. So anyway, it's just a fascinating career that she had.
I think it's
in
interesting
place.
because to me, her and Cornell, I think she's always been a little deeper than Cornell. Sorry about that, good brother. But there's this, they both reached a point in their careers where they had what we would call either mainstream success. Like, and Cornell obviously did a lot more sort of CNN and everything else, and his name got really out there. And they both kind of, at least in my estimation, took this sort of turn on like love and how love is central to change and so forth and so on, which I've always kind of like not down with those things, but that's been sort of a turn. But I think I think Bell Hooks, again, people get mad at it, whatever, but I think she's part of her legacy is also in good ways and maybe sometimes in problematic ways, but in good ways, challenge directly the idea of male violence against women. And that even if she didn't go as far as some folks will go today and call particularly Black men oppressors or whatever, but more importantly, she was not shying away from the incidents of violence in our own community and had to be dealt with in radical and straight talking ways. And again, I think there's been folks who've challenged some of the thoughts that she had around it. But I think challenging and dismissing are two different things. And there's real insight to be gained from her work, because she talks about, like you said, you mentioned before, some battered women shelters and the people who are in there, like Black women, you know what I mean? Just that who have suffered at the hands of spouses and partners and so forth. And I think that's really, really important that she's able to dive into it. And whether or not more nationalist types she took her lumps from, no pun intended, obviously, she certainly put something out there that people had to deal with, talk about, that I think, and she would not allow herself, in my estimation, to be strictly some tool of white feminism to batter
that's right,
part of Blackness.
Hey, look,
so yeah,
she went at Oprah, she went at Henry Louis Gates. She also went at Madonna back in the day, who said in some interview publicly that Black men were the most misogynistic that she had ever encountered, as she was ending her marriage with Sean Penn, who, as Bell Hooks reminded everybody, was beating her ass.
Right.
So Bell was very clear, like, how is it that Black men are the problem when Sean is beating your ass? But in the interview, you go into magazines while you all hugged up with Big Daddy Kane and whoever else, and Leon in that video, you kissing in Black Jesus and Tupac. But when it comes to the interview, it's Black men who are the most, so Bell was she, again, and one of the things I think is appropriate, and somebody should, Jackie, probably you'll get to it, or others who have more space and ability to think in this way, that she occupied a space that and a space of nuance that is a struggle, particularly for this day and age. She was a complicated, she wasn't, easily categorized, Kamau, boxed. She wasn't so easily boxed. So I'm so, surprised Kamau got this much nice to say about her. Like
Kamal's trying to box people.
Yeah, Kamau said he needed people to be categorizable. Like, I need you in your box.
Very authoritarian, but I just such a shocking surprise.
BKK. I keep trying to remind people there's that side of Kamau, that Brooklyn, that BKK come out, boy. I tell you.
Now, Kamau, Africans don't put people in the box. We don't do that. We don't do that. Anyway,
like you said, rise in power to Bell Hooks, and we lost Greg Tate this week as well, as we wrap up a week of remixes here. Please check me out tomorrow morning. Kaba, Asheru coming through. There is no Sundays this week. Ear Doctor has a wedding. I don't know, so I clearly have to put more change in his pocket.
He's marrying Madonna.
Because this is whack that we don't have a Sundays. He's marrying Madonna.
I might do an RT on Sunday in the place of it. You know what I'm saying?
There we go.
A couple clips in the gun. You know what I mean?
We got Warrior class on Saturday. Thanks,
Yes.
mate, for the reminder. Uncle Devin, I think, is on a holiday. But anyway, who knows what's coming up? So just that's why I keep saying click the bell so you get your notifications, so you know that Jackie's show comes on Friday night when it comes on. I mean, you don't have to worry so much. It just takes away the pressure.
Did I
Just
miss it?
ease your
No,
mind.
there it is.
Click the bell, and then it's just boom. It just know,
right there.
Message.
Anyway, I don't know what's wrong with
show.
these guys. That's right. We out of here. Salute.
Peace, y'all.